Hey, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor Live. You're getting my analysis on what I think is happening this week in the games industry. There's lots of news today to talk about, so we'll get into it in just a second. If you're a Patreon patron, you are getting this live, and we appreciate it. If you're a YouTube subscriber, same thing. Thank you so much for your support. Whether you are a subscriber or not, please try to remember to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. It's pretty easy to do. There are instructions in the show description below, but you have to re-up this every month. So if you haven't done it in a while, please go back down there and link it. Again, it costs you absolutely nothing. You already paid for it. So all you're doing is forcing Amazon to pay Shane a little bit extra. You've already paid for it. It's part of your subscription. So make that happen. You're helping Shane out immensely. And I'm not really posting on Twitter anymore. You can follow me on Blue Sky. I haven't posted yet there either, but both places at Michael Pachter. Phil Spencer appears to have kind of given up on trying to compete with Sony in the console wars. And when questioned about the whole first-party strategy and first-party Microsoft games appearing on competitor consoles, he basically said, we really want to push Game Pass. We're indifferent if someone chooses to buy a console, if they buy a Switch or a PlayStation or an Xbox. We're not going to emphasize Xbox any longer. So I think the fanboys are going crazy because it's much like going to a university and rooting for your team, but you tend to really root for your team against the competition. So fanboys, Xbox fanboys and PlayStation fanboys are like that. They like to gloat about how their console is better than the other one. And now we've got one of the two big parties saying they don't care. So Sony has essentially a monopoly among people who don't care about Nintendo content. And most people do care about Nintendo content, but they buy a Switch to play Nintendo content and they buy a PlayStation or an Xbox to play everything else. Because you can't really play EA Sports Football Club, the current version, or Call of Duty current version on a Switch. So if you want third-party content, you're buying a PlayStation or an Xbox, and Microsoft basically said, go for it, buy a PlayStation. What does that mean? Is Sony's monopoly going to result in fewer first-party Sony titles? Yes. Was that already happening? Yes. It's become so ridiculously expensive to make a high-quality game. We're talking about budgets of 400 people that take typically 5 years or longer, and 400 people probably earn about $50 million a year. It really is that much. And so, 5 years or longer, game budgets are 250, 300 million. Grand Theft Auto is probably 800 people working full time on the game for 11 years. So you're talking about $1 billion plus. You've seen these leaks that say Call of Duty 750 million. I think that that's just wrong. I think that the marketing guy who testified in court about it was talking about budgets beyond just the game development, probably some marketing, even though he said it wasn't. But still, 200-300 million. At that cost, you can't afford to make Concord. You just can't. You can't afford to make Dragon Age. You can't. So you don't get a payback if your game only sells 1 or 2 or 3 million units. And so we're getting fewer games anyway because they're much more expensive and much riskier if you don't sell a lot of units. And now that Microsoft has basically said Xbox titles, Microsoft first-party titles are going to support PlayStation, why does Sony need anything? They're the de facto default. That's true. And to be honest with you, I think as long as there's a large and robust multiplayer market, Sony's going to dominate. What I do see Game Pass doing is using the PC to power the Game Pass subscription. Linking the PC to the TV, which means that if you download the game to your PC but you play on your television, your PC becomes your console. So I think ultimately that's how Microsoft would like Game Pass to work. So you can play large-scale multiplayer and have very low latency. It'll be the same as playing on a console. And I think that PCs will be optimized for that. I think that future generations of PC chipsets are going to think about gaming first. So I really do expect ultimately all of us are going to be Game Pass subscribers in one way or another. What you need to do is segment that Game Pass subscription, because people aren't paying $20 a month to play 1 or 2 games a year. They can't. That makes no sense at all. Now, will they buy a console to play 1 or 2 games a year? It ends up costing about the same. If you spend $500 on a console, even every 8 years or 10 years, you're spending $50 to $75 a year on the console and $120 on the games or $140 on the games. It turns into a Game Pass subscription. What I see Microsoft doing is ultimately making the Game Pass subscription $12 for PC, which is where it is now, and probably something like $7.99, $9.99 plus ads, and the ads will be preload, like YouTube, and maybe an interstitial ad in between levels. So I think you'll probably start to see a low price subscription at $120 with no special equipment required. Just any PC can run the game. I think you're going to get a lot of Game Pass subscribers. Does Sony win? Yes. There's always going to be a console market. It will be smaller next time around. But if you think about this recent Sony announcement, 75 million, 74.9 million PlayStation 4s, Microsoft 5s, excuse me. Microsoft hasn't made an announcement yet on Xbox Series, probably 20, maybe 25. So the market right now for those two is about 100 million. Next cycle, the market will be 100 million, but they'll all be Sony. So truthfully, maybe the market drops to 90 next cycle, at the same point in time, but Sony's going to sell more consoles. Worst case, the market drops to 80 and Sony's going to sell more consoles. So Sony's fine for the next, decade or more. I do think that console gaming is going to shrink the way movies in theaters has shrunk. It's still a thing, but we go to the movies less often because we have so many alternatives on our television. Same thing's going to happen. Game Pass is going to give you lots of options on your TV. They may have a $3 a month subscription if you only play one game. Maybe people will do that and play Call of Duty only and spend $36 a year. So there's ways to do it to make it more a la carte and less all you can eat, where they'll get the incremental subscriber. But I think this is going to happen. I think Microsoft's just going to go the way of Netflix and become a big subscription model. And it's sort of like Disney saying, we're going to continue to make movies and we're going to put them in theaters, but we're not going to broadcast them on ABC any longer. We're going to let ABC die a slow death and we're going to focus on Disney Plus. It's not that big a deal. ABC broadcast TV is dying anyway. Microsoft is just kind of making that call right now that the equivalent, of the old model, the console model, is dying, and they don't need to kill themselves spending billions of dollars developing the next Xbox. They just don't need to. So my guess is you'll never see another Xbox. This is the last one. They might do iterations of this to drive the price down. I could see a Game Pass only Xbox that is literally just a CPU and a GPU and no disk drive, no anything, maybe a little hard drive so you can download games, put it under your TV and play Game Pass. And maybe they can make that thing for $100 and maybe that's the entry level Game Pass hub. So they can put a really stripped down PC that doesn't actually function as a PC, call it an Xbox Game Pass edition. That I bet they do. I guess the right question is, what's Sony going to do? And the concept of exclusive just became a lot less relevant. If there's no more Xbox, it doesn't matter. By de facto, every title is exclusive to PlayStation that's not on Switch. So will Sony make fewer first-party titles? Yes. They'll still make them, but fewer. They're going to not take risks. There'll probably be a lot less of the, kind of $15 titles and about the same number of the $70 titles, but they're not going to kill themselves. Will they pay third parties for an exclusive? No, there's no reason to, because they don't need a timed exclusive or a game that comes out, like the old pre-acquisition Insomniac titles that were made exclusively for PlayStation. They don't need that anymore. But that doesn't really change what you get. You're still going to get the same titles, just the publishers don't have the subsidy from Sony to launch on PlayStation first or to come up with, unique content. I mean, years ago, I remember there was a Mortal Kombat title that had Kratos as a playable character, but only in the PlayStation version, which totally makes sense. But Sony subsidized that, and they won't subsidize it. Warner Brothers will have to want to do that. So again, I see Sony making more money under this model. They're going to take less risk, so they're first-party titles are going to be fewer overall and lower risk. They're not going to be paying out money for exclusives to third parties, which means they're going to make more profit. Third parties are going to make less profit. Third parties are going to sell fewer titles on console overall because, as I said, the console market shrinks from 100 to 90 or 80. Third parties are going to have greater incentive to appear on Game Pass. I do not think that you see anything day and date on Game Pass other than Microsoft-owned titles. Microsoft may lure somebody. Sniper Elite had a new game that came out that was on Game Pass day one. So you'll get smaller games like that don't sell hundreds of millions of units, but few and far between. And I think Microsoft is going to kind of replace Sony in terms of paying up to get things on Game Pass that wouldn't otherwise be there because they're really interested. So publishers will figure it out, but the playing field has changed. The rules of the game have changed. Sony's in control. So I absolutely think Sony will be a more profitable company as a result of Microsoft de-emphasizing the Xbox. Appreciate you guys joining us on Pachter Factor Live. You're getting my kind of review of the topical stories of the last couple of weeks in pretty close to real time. If you are a Patreon patron or a YouTube subscriber, you are getting it in real time, and we appreciate it. You are keeping Shane in macaroni and cheese. He managed to turn his water bill and his gas bill back on so he can heat that macaroni up and enjoy it. And if you are doing those things or not, please remember to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. Shane gets paid by Amazon. It costs you nothing. You are sticking it to Amazon. All you have to do is follow the instructions in the show description below. Link your Twitch Prime account to your Amazon Prime account. It's pretty simple, 3 clicks, and you have to do that every month. So if you haven't done it in a while, please re-up that. Shane gets a check from Amazon, which is awesome, and it costs you nothing. You've already paid for that. So take advantage of your Amazon benefits by linking those 2 accounts. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor Live, my fellow babies. We will see you next week.